The city's sky was heavy with a dull grey as crowds moved like restless currents through the crowded streets of New Terra. The hum of conversations mixed with the distant wail of sirens and the occasional roar of hover vehicles racing through. Layered skyways. Among the throng, a man named Ethan March hurried forward, clutching his coat tighter against the chill that crept under the city's artificial canopy. He was a tall man, with deep-set eyes shadowed by worry, and a face marked by the exhaustion of 1,000 sleepless nights. But today wasn't about his troubles. Today was something far stranger, something that had become part of daily life for every man on Earth. The law, the daily pleasing law. Every man, from the youngest boy to the eldest grandfather, was legally required to please an alien woman once a day. It wasn't optional, it was mandatory. The authorities enforced it with precision and without mercy. Ethan had always wondered why the law existed, who wrote it, and what strange cosmic thread had tied humanity so tightly to alien customs. He had tried to ignore it, to live his life like before, but the law didn't allow that. Not today. As he turned into a narrow alley to avoid the morning rush, two sharp-booted officers stepped from the shadows, blocking his path. "Ethan March," one called out, voice cold and official. "You are in violation of Article 9, Section 4 of the Interplanetary Compliance Act. You have not fulfilled your daily obligation to the alien liaison assigned to you." Ethan's heart sank. I was on my way." The officer's gaze was hard, unyielding. "No excuses accepted. Come with us." There was no room for argument. Ethan's mind raced. The pleasing wasn't some trivial act. It was a ritual steeped in complexity, respect, and at times terrifying unknowns. To the alien woman assigned to him, it meant far more than what the simple words suggested. He followed silently, weaving through the labyrinthine backstreets toward the liaison center, a sleek, imposing building that hummed softly with alien technology embedded in its walls. Inside, the air was cool and faintly tinged with unfamiliar scents, something floral but metallic, a fragrance that unsettled yet intrigued. The officers led Ethan to a waiting chamber where his assigned alien awaited. She was unlike anything he had ever imagined. Tall, slender, with skin shimmering faintly like moonlight on water. Her eyes were deep pools of swirling silver that seemed to see through him, reading every secret fear and hope. Her hair flowed like liquid night, cascading past her shoulders in waves that seemed to flicker with subtle light. She spoke softly, her voice a melodic hum that echoed in the quiet room. "You are late, Ethan. This displeases me." Ethan swallowed. "Hard. I'm sorry. It won't happen again." Her gaze softened just a fraction. "This is not about punishment. It is about balance, about survival." He wanted to ask more, but before he could, the room shifted subtly. The walls glowed faintly as holographic images flickered into existence, glimpses of other worlds, strange customs, and the origins of the law. The alien woman explained. "Long ago, before humans and aliens shared this world, conflicts tore us apart. To ensure peace, the daily pleasing was established, a bond of trust and respect. It is more than ritual. It is a promise." Ethan felt the weight of her words sink deep into him, but then a sudden alarm shattered the fragile calm. Red lights bathed the room as a loudspeaker crackled. "Warning! Unauthorized breach detected! Security protocols activated!" The alien woman's eyes narrowed. "We are not safe here." Before Ethan could react, the doors burst open and shadowy figures slipped inside, their faces hidden beneath dark helmets. Ethan's heart hammered as he realized they were not allies. The room erupted into chaos. The chaotic scene inside the liaison center had barely begun before Ethan's instincts screamed for action. The shadowy figures who had burst in moved with terrifying precision, sweeping through the room like a dark wave. But the alien woman, whose name Ethan still didn't know, remained composed, her silver eyes flashing with fierce determination. "Stay close," she whispered, grabbing his arm with an unexpectedly firm grip. The doors slammed shut behind them as they rushed down a narrow, twisting corridor lit by soft, pulsating lights embedded in the walls. The scent of metal and something faintly floral trailed in, the air mixing with the dull roar of distant alarms. Ethan's mind was spinning. Who were these attackers? Why were they here? And why was this alien woman so calm when their lives were clearly in danger? They came to a small chamber where the woman pressed her palm against a glowing panel. The wall slid aside silently, revealing a hidden passage lined with strange glyphs that shimmered faintly in an alien script. "We don't have much time," she said urgently. "This way." They plunged into the passage, their footsteps muffled, against a soft floor. As they moved deeper, Ethan's fear began to mingle with awe. The walls were alive with shifting images, scenes of faraway worlds, starships gliding through voids of endless black, and alien societies governed by laws that seemed both familiar and utterly alien. Finally, they emerged into a small room bathed in soft blue light. The alien woman turned to him, her expression unreadable. "My name is Lyra," she said softly. "And you have questions?" Ethan nodded, the floodgates opening. "Who are those people? Why did they attack? And why is this law so important? That men like me have to follow it every single day?" Lyra's gaze darkened with sorrow. "There is much you don't understand about our worlds, about the fragile balance that holds peace between humans and aliens." She gestured to a translucent screen that flickered to life, displaying images of two worlds torn apart by war, a human planet devastated by conflict, and her homeworld, a distant place called Valora, scarred by centuries of strife. "Centuries ago," she began, "our species were enemies. War, mistrust, and fear threatened to destroy both our civilizations. The daily pleasing law was born out of a desperate need to create empathy and connection between our peoples. It is more than a ritual. It is a sacred promise that binds us." Ethan listened, enraptured despite himself. He had always thought of the law as strange, maybe even oppressive, but hearing it framed as a pact for survival changed everything. Lyra's voice softened. "The law ensures that every day a human man and an alien woman build trust through this bond. It breaks down barriers, transforms fear into understanding. Without it, the fragile peace would shatter." But as Ethan digested her words, the weight of reality pressed down harder. "And those attackers?" he asked, voice tense. "They don't want peace, do they?" Lyra shook her head grimly. "There are those who believe our coexistence weakens us, a faction bent on destroying the Alliance. They seek to reignite the wars." The room seemed to grow colder. Ethan swallowed. "Why me? Why was I chosen?" Lyra smiled faintly, almost sadly. "Because you have something they don't. Potential. Potential to change, not just your world, but ours." Suddenly the room trembled as an explosion echoed nearby. Dust fell from the ceiling, and Lyra's eyes sharpened. "We must move," she said urgently. "They are close." Together, they slipped into another corridor, deeper into the heart of the liaison center. As they ran, Ethan felt the walls closing in, not just physically, but mentally. The weight of the law, the reality of the danger, and the fragile hope all pressed on him. They stopped in a small observation room overlooking the city below. The sun was setting, casting an orange glow over the sprawling metropolis. Lyra turned to him, eyes filled with quiet determination. "You are part of something bigger now, Ethan. The survival of our peoples depends on us." Ethan nodded, heart pounding. The law wasn't just about obligation anymore. It was about hope, fear, and a fight for peace in a universe that seemed ready to tear itself apart. But deep inside, a new question gnawed at him. How far was he willing to go to protect this fragile alliance and the alien woman who had become his unexpected ally? The night pressed down over the city like a heavy blanket as Ethan and Lyra moved through the labyrinthine corridors beneath the liaison center. The air was thick with tension, every step echoing the growing threat that shadowed their path. Ethan's mind raced, still trying to grasp everything Lyra had revealed. The ancient war, the sacred law, and the faction that sought to destroy their fragile peace. But amidst the swirling chaos, one question gnawed at him relentlessly. Why had he been chosen? Lyra had said he had potential, but what did that mean? And more importantly, what was expected of him now? They reached a small, dimly lit chamber where a holographic map hovered in mid-air. It showed the sprawling urban maze above and scattered, red markers flickering ominously. They've split into 3 groups, Lyra said, her voice low and urgent. Their goal is to capture key alliance members and disrupt the communication grid. If they succeed, war will erupt. Ethan's heart pounded. The stakes were higher than he'd imagined. Then what do we do? He asked. Lyra's eyes held a fierce determination. We stop them. But to do that, you need to understand what lies beneath the surface of this law. She activated the map, zooming in on an area marked as the Archives. The Archives, she explained, hold the history of our alliance, records of the war, the treaties, and the secrets that kept the peace alive. If the faction finds it, they could use the information to unravel everything. Ethan swallowed hard. Then we have to protect it. Lyra nodded. And there's something else, something you must see for yourself. Without another word, she guided him through a hidden door that opened into a spiraling staircase descending deep underground. As they descended, the temperature dropped and the walls began to hum softly with ancient energy. The air smelled of old paper and something, faintly metallic. At the bottom, they entered a vast chamber filled with towering shelves of glowing data crystals and ancient artifacts, the Archives. Ethan marveled at the sheer scale of the place. This was more than a library, it was a vault of civilizations. Lyra approached a pedestal where a large crystal hovered, pulsing with light. This crystal contains the earliest recorded memory of the law, the moment it was born in the fires. Of desperation, she said. She touched the crystal, and the room was suddenly filled with swirling images, a battlefield scarred by endless conflict, leaders of humans and Velerans forced into a desperate truce, and a ritual where a human, man and an alien woman, sealed a pact of trust. Ethan watched, mesmerized. This was the birth of the daily pleasing, Lyra said softly. Not just a law, but a promise of peace, to break cycles of hatred through connection. Suddenly, the images shifted to a darker scene, betrayal, violence, and shadows moving in the night. The faction you saw attacking us, Lyra whispered, were born from this betrayal. They believe the law weakens us. They want to return to the old ways, war and conquest. Ethan clenched his fists. We can't let that happen. Lyra nodded but hesitated. There is more. The law demands more than ritual. It demands sacrifice. Ethan's breath caught. Sacrifice? She turned to him, her silver eyes deep pools of sorrow. To maintain the bond, a connection must be forged, not just physical, but emotional and spiritual. It tests the strength of those bound by it. Many have failed, some have lost everything. Ethan felt the weight of her words settle deep within him. Why tell me this now? He asked. Because, Lyra said, the bond between us is awakening. You are no longer just a participant. You are becoming part of the legacy. Suddenly, the chamber shook violently, dust falling from the ceiling. Alarms blared in the distance. They found us, Lyra said grimly. We must move. They raced through twisting tunnels, pursued by unseen enemies. As they turned a corner, Ethan was caught off guard by a figure stepping from the shadows, a tall man clad in dark armor, eyes burning with hatred. "Lyra," the man hissed. "You betray your people by aiding humans." Lyra's eyes flashed with defiance. "You betray peace by trying to destroy it." Ethan stepped forward, heart pounding. "Who is he?" Lyra glanced at him. "Kyle, once a brother, now an enemy." Kyle sneered. "You think your bond with this human will save you? The law is a lie." Before Ethan could react, Kyle lunged forward, a blade shimmering in his hand. In the chaos, Ethan grabbed a nearby staff, parrying Kyle's strike. The fight was brutal. Steel clashed against glowing energy. Lyra joined in, her agility and strength fierce. Together they forced Kyle back, but not before he slashed a deep gash across Lyra's arm. Blood shimmered, not red, but silver. Ethan gasped. "Are you—" Lyra nodded grimly. "Veloran blood runs differently. This wound will heal, but it reminds us of what's at stake." Kyle retreated, vowing, "This is not over." As the echoes of battle faded, Ethan looked at Lyra, her strength, her pain, and the bond growing between them. The law was more than a rule. It was a living, breathing force, shaping destinies and challenging everything Ethan thought he knew about loyalty and love. But as dawn approached, one truth was clear: their fight had only just begun. The first rays of dawn slipped through the cracks of the underground tunnels, casting long shadows over the battered chamber where Ethan and Lyra had barely escaped Kyle's attack. The air was thick with urgency, and every heartbeat seemed to echo with the looming threat of betrayal. Lyra's silver blood glistened faintly on her torn sleeve, a vivid reminder of how close they had come to losing everything. Ethan's thoughts swirled, still trying to digest the weight of the revelations. The ancient pact, the war born of mistrust, and the faction willing to destroy peace for their own twisted vision. But now, more than ever, the urgency to act pulsed in his veins. "Ethan," Lyra whispered, her voice steady despite the pain, "we need allies. We cannot fight this war alone." Ethan nodded, feeling a newfound resolve hardening inside him. "Who can we trust? The faction runs deep." Lyra's eyes flickered with hesitation. "There's one person, an elder from my people. Her name is Vesha. She has always believed in the alliance, even when others turned away." "Can she help us stop Kale and his followers?" Ethan asked. Lyra bit her lip. "She might, but she's reclusive and wary of outsiders. Especially humans." Ethan looked around the dim chamber, the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders. "Then we'll have to convince her. We don't have time for doubt." They emerged from the tunnels into the early morning light of the city, a sprawling metropolis of gleaming towers and hidden secrets. The streets were already bustling with life, oblivious to the undercurrent of danger brewing beneath their feet. Lyra led Ethan through narrow alleys and forgotten passages until they reached a secluded garden, an oasis of green surrounded by towering buildings. At its center stood an ancient tree, its branches twisting toward the sky like outstretched arms. "This is where Vesha lives," Lyra said softly. "She's the last of the peacekeepers." They approached a small pavilion where an elderly Veloran woman sat meditating, her eyes closed, but her senses alert. Vesha opened her eyes slowly, revealing irises shimmering with the same silver hue as Lyra's. "Lyra," she greeted, voice calm but firm, "and you brought a human. Why?" Ethan stepped forward, feeling the weight of her gaze. "I'm Ethan. I want to help save our worlds from destruction." Vesha studied him intently. "Words are easy. Actions define loyalty." Lyra nodded. "We've seen Kale's betrayal firsthand. He threatens the law and peace we've built." Vesha's expression softened slightly. The law is fragile, tested by time and treachery, but it is still our best hope." She gestured for them to sit. "Tell me everything, and I will decide if you are worthy of trust." Ethan recounted the events, the law, the faction's uprising, Kale's attack, and the awakening bond between him and Lyra. Vesha listened silently, her eyes never leaving his. When he finished, she sighed. "The stakes are higher than I feared, but if the bond between you is genuine, it could be the key to restoring balance." "Then what do we do?" Ethan asked, hope mingling with fear. "We must seek the Heartstone," Vesha said, her voice dropping to a whisper. "A relic hidden deep within the Valoran sacred lands. It holds power to strengthen the law's bond and reveal the true intentions of those who oppose it." Lyra frowned. "The journey is perilous. The sacred lands are protected by ancient guardians and traps designed to keep intruders away." Vesha nodded. "Only the worthy can claim the Heartstone, but if you succeed, it will bind the Alliance stronger than ever." Ethan felt the weight of the challenge. "Where do we start?" Vesha rose slowly, her presence commanding. "At the Veil of Stars, a hidden portal in the outskirts of the city. It will take you to the sacred lands, but be warned, the faction will try to stop you." As night fell, the trio set out toward the Veil of Stars, weaving through the city's shadows. The tension was palpable, every step a race against time and enemies unseen. When they reached the portal, a shimmering arch of light suspended between two ancient pillars, Ethan's heart pounded with anticipation. "This is it," Vesha said. "Once you pass through, there is no turning back." Lyra took Ethan's hand, her grip steady. "Together, we face whatever comes next." With a deep breath, Ethan stepped forward, crossing the threshold into a realm unlike any he had ever seen. The sacred lands stretched before them. A vast expanse of glowing flora, crystalline rivers, and skies swirling with stars, though it was day. But beauty masked danger. The air crackled with energy, and shadows moved at the edge of vision. As they ventured deeper, the ground trembled beneath their feet. A colossal guardian, a towering beast woven from stone and light, emerged from the mist. It roared, shaking. "The earth, only those pure of heart may pass," Vesha intoned. Ethan stepped forward, feeling the bond with Lyra strengthening, a warmth spreading through his chest. He raised his hands not in attack, but in respect. The guardian's eyes glowed, studying him, then slowly lowered its massive form. The path ahead cleared, but the peace was short-lived. From the shadows, Kale and his followers appeared, weapons drawn, their faces twisted with fury. "You will not claim the Heartstone," Kyle spat. "The law will crumble, and our true reign will begin." A fierce battle erupted beneath the glowing trees, light and shadow clashing in a deadly dance. Ethan fought alongside Lyra and Vesha, their skills and bond tested to the limit. But amidst the chaos, Ethan felt a sharp pain in his side. A blade had found its mark. As he stumbled, vision blurring, he caught Lyra's gaze, fierce, determined, but filled with fear. He realized the true cost of their fight. Not just for the law, but for the fragile hope that humanity and Valorans could coexist. The battle raged on. But one thing was certain, nothing would ever be the same again. The battle had left the sacred lands scarred. The once serene glow of the crystalline rivers dimmed, the vibrant flora crushed beneath heavy footsteps. Ethan's wound throbbed fiercely, each heartbeat sending sharp reminders through his side. But the fire burning within him refused to die. Kyle and his faction had retreated, their snarls echoing in the distance as they vanished into the mist. Yet their threat hung heavy in the air, a reminder that the war was far from over. Lyra knelt beside Ethan, her silver eyes reflecting worry and fierce determination. Vesha hovered, close, her ancient wisdom evident in the calm steadiness with which she tended to his injury. "We can't waste time," Lyra whispered, urgency in her voice. "The Heartstone is close, and it's the only way to save our people and yours." Ethan nodded through clenched teeth. The pain was sharp, but he would endure it. For the law, for Lyra, for humanity. Vesha stood, her gaze piercing the dense canopy above. The Heartstone's chamber lies beneath the starfall tree, the oldest living being in the sacred lands. Its roots burrow deep, guarding the relic from those unworthy. Guided by Vesha's knowledge, they pushed deeper into the glowing forest. Strange creatures watched from shadows, their eyes glinting with curiosity or menace. The path was treacherous. Twisted roots threatened to trip them, and unseen traps whispered of ancient protections. Hours passed, the tension growing with each step. Finally, they arrived at a clearing where the starfall tree rose, its colossal trunk stretching beyond sight, its branches glittering like stars against the twilight sky. At its base, a carved stone door lay half-hidden beneath roots and moss. "The Heartstone waits within," Vesha said solemnly, "but only those bound by true trust may enter." Ethan exchanged a glance with Lyra, the bond between them glowing stronger than ever, a lifeline amid uncertainty. Together, they pressed their hands on the stone door. A soft hum resonated, and the door slowly creaked open, revealing a spiral staircase descending into darkness. Torchlight flickered as they stepped inside, the air thick with ancient energy. At the bottom, a vast chamber awaited, illuminated by a pulsating gem set on a pedestal, the Heartstone. Its light was mesmerizing, casting shifting colors on the walls, etched with stories of Valoran history, alliances, and betrayals. Ethan stepped forward, heart pounding. As he reached out to touch the Heartstone, a voice echoed through the chamber. "Only those who embrace truth may wield my power." Ethan hesitated, then looked at Lyra, whose gaze was steady. "I accept," he said. The Heartstone flared brilliantly, its energy coursing through their bodies. Visions flooded Ethan's mind, memories of the law's origin, the sacrifices made, and the fractures that threatened to destroy it. But then, the visions twisted, revealing a hidden truth. Kale's faction was not only opposed to the law, but was being manipulated by a shadowy force, an alien influence from beyond Valora, seeking to exploit their conflict to enslave both their worlds. Ethan gasped, stepping back. Lyra's eyes widened. "This changes everything." Vesha nodded gravely. "The true enemy is beyond our borders, a force waiting for us to weaken ourselves." Suddenly, the chamber trembled. The stone door slammed shut behind them, sealing them inside. A sinister laugh echoed through the walls. "You fools," a voice sneered. "You think the Heartstone will save you? It will only bring your doom." From the shadows, a tall figure stepped forward, cloaked and masked, the true puppeteer behind Kale's rebellion. Ethan's heart sank. The war was bigger than he ever imagined. Lyra stepped protectively in front of him. "Who are you?" The figure's voice was cold, unyielding. "I am Zarthal, emissary of the Void Dominion. I have waited centuries for this moment, when your divided worlds would crumble." Vesha's eyes blazed. "You will not succeed." Zarthal laughed again, dark and cruel. "You will fall, just like the others." Ethan's mind raced. The law, the alliance, their hopes, all threatened by this shadow. But surrender was not an option. He gripped Lyra's hand tightly. "We fight, not just for us, but for everyone." The chamber began to shake violently, dust falling from the ancient ceiling. With strength born of desperation, Ethan and Lyra prepared to face the true enemy. Their fight now not just for survival, but for the fate of two worlds. The chamber trembled beneath their feet, ancient stones shifting as Zarthal's malevolent presence suffused the air. The Void emissary's laughter echoed like thunder. cruel, and relentless. Ethan tightened his grip on Lyra's hand, feeling the warmth and strength that had kept him alive through every trial. "We fight, Zarthal, for both our worlds," Ethan said, voice steady despite the fear that curled in his chest. Lyra's eyes blazed with determination. "You underestimate the power of unity." Vesha stepped forward, her aura glowing bright with ancient energy. "The Heartstone's light is the embodiment of trust, sacrifice, and hope. You cannot extinguish that." Zarthal's lips curled into a cruel sneer. "Hope? Trust? Fools! You cling to fragile ideals while the Void Dominion grows unstoppable." With a wave of his hand, shadows surged forward, engulfing the chamber. Ethan and Lyra braced themselves as the darkness pressed in, threatening to swallow them whole. But then, a sudden burst of light exploded from the Heartstone, pushing the shadows back. "Together," Lyra whispered, her voice echoing with power. Ethan nodded, and they focused their will, their bond fueling the Heartstone's radiance. The chamber filled with a blinding glow as light and darkness clashed in a battle of wills. Images flooded Ethan's mind, memories of Earth, of Valora, of every act of kindness, courage, and unity that had brought them here. The sacrifices of countless souls who had believed in a future where their worlds could coexist. As the light surged, Zarthal screamed, his form flickering like a dying flame. "You cannot stop the void," he roared. "But we can change its course," Vesha replied, her voice calm yet powerful. The Heartstone pulsed once more, and a wave of energy swept through the chamber, shattering Zarthal's shadowy form. When the light faded, silence fell. Zarthal was gone. Ethan sank to his knees, exhaustion overwhelming him, but a profound peace settled over him. Lyra knelt beside him, her eyes soft but resolute. "The law must change," she said quietly. "Not to bind us in fear or obligation, but to honor trust and choice." Ethan looked at her, understanding dawning. "The law was meant to unite us, not enslave." Vesha smiled gently. "The Heartstone has shown you the truth, that the greatest strength comes from empathy, respect, and freedom." Together they rose, stepping out of the chamber into the dawn-lit sacred lands. The forest seemed to breathe with renewed life, the wounds of battle beginning to heal. News of their victory and the truth about the Void Dominion spread quickly. The factions that once fought now gathered, ready to rebuild a new alliance, one based on mutual respect, choice, and understanding. Ethan returned to Earth, carrying the Heartstone's light within him, a symbol of hope for humanity's place in the cosmos. In time, the law of daily joy transformed. No longer a command imposed, it became a celebration, a daily honoring of connection, consent, and the beauty of diversity between species. Lyra and Ethan's bond became a legend, a story told to remind all beings that love and trust transcend worlds. And as the stars shimmered above, one truth remained clear. It was not laws or force that shaped destiny, but the courage to choose compassion over fear. The end.